Welcome to AI Lab Unfiltered, where we take a deep dive into tools, techniques, and people using AI. We got a great show today, don't we, Pete? Yes, we do.
Every episode's great.
Today we have Ben Jacques from Mutually Human. We're going to talk about everything to do with AI in personas. We had you out at the AI Lab meetup group, which was awesome because you talked about something that nobody has touched on really since then or before then. So it's been a unique component, and I'm getting a lot more people asking about how do I build AI personas? How do you use that, especially with more reasoning and more generative AI coming out? So it was really on point when you talked to us, and that was months ago, and stuff has changed so much since then. So give me a little taste of where you're at now and what you're doing, and tell me more about yourself.
Yeah, so at Mutually Human now, formerly Spin Dance, we were acquired, and it's been kind of a cool thing to see these groups come together that have these AI skills, custom software, BI, data all coming together, and so. One of the things that's been great for me out of it is that they have an entire sales team, so less of that is on me. And I get to spend more time actually building AI and software things again, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
So that's been a big part of it for me that I've really enjoyed coming out of this.
Good. So what has more of this time spent being able to develop? What have you been able to do with that extra time now that you're not selling?
Yeah, so I mean, some of it is just client project work, which is great. That's how we make our money. But we've also been able to do a lot more investigation into some of the new generative AI tooling. Vibe coding is all the rage right now. So we're trying to figure out how that fits into our process, which has been fascinating. Gives us a whole new avenue for being able to develop these fully functional rapid prototypes for customers, where they get to actually look and see and feel what it is that we might be building for them.
Yeah.
In so much less time than we've ever been able to do before, which is a lot of fun, but we're not quite sure how to do it right yet. So we were kind of experimenting with it and testing it with clients and getting their feedback, and it's been a lot of fun.
What kind of tools are you using for that?
So we've largely been using bolt.new, which I know in a previous episode you guys talked about Lovable.
That's right.
Which is very similar type of
baby.
Yeah.
We're going to get them on here at some point. We're going to be sponsored by them because they talk about it every episode.
That's awesome. So yeah, Bolt and Lovable are pretty similar in kind of what they do. I also saw one recently called Engine that's kind of meant for more enterprise stuff. I haven't tried it yet, but I really want to.
Can we take a second? So we don't know who our audience is, or even if we have one at all. But we have to. I want to take into account that we have people that may be tuning in for the first time. They've never heard of Drew talk about Lovable, even though he talks about it in every episode, or what that could even do, because it's incredible. Could you just talk a little bit about what these tools can do, like a Lovable or a Bolt that new?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really prompting to build an entire application, and it does it phenomenally well. So it's actually building out your whole code structure based on the types of frameworks that you want to use. It's generating all of the individual files that you need, and then the really cool piece about it is that it can then render all of that created application right in your web browser, so you can see it, you can click around, you can play with it, and then give it feedback like, oh, I don't like how that page looks. Oh, I want another page. I need a contact form. I actually want user login. Can you build that for me? And just keep going back and forth with it and building a fully functional application. And Bolt.new has like a backing store that they use as well called Supabase. So if you want actual data storage and things that it can do that for you as well.
I'd just like to point out Lovable has that as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I think both of them have a Figma integration now. So if you have a designer that created something in Figma, you can actually just import that directly and it will generate the application pixel perfect based on those Figma designs.
So really crazy. For anybody that's sitting out there is like they've got that killer app idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to code. I don't know anything about computers even or anything like
Can't
that.
afford a development team or a company.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm just starting out or whatever it is. You can literally, with a free account, because I think you get, 5 prompts with lovable.com. Wait, no. Is it lovable?
Lovable.dev. This episode's brought to you by...
But you sign up. I actually just created, you'll be proud of me, I created my account yesterday.
Nice.
You just type the idea. Like I have an idea for an app that does this. It identifies flowers or whatever it is, and it writes the code, creates the app, and then you can then publish the app.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that this is the time that we live in. So anyway, I like to help explain some of these things so that, somebody that's not really into this kind of stuff can, there's value for them too. So anyway,
love that.
One of the applications that I'm going to go on a rant on this now. One of the applications that I built, I literally fed it a Excel spreadsheet picture, not the actual Excel spreadsheet, but a screen capture of it. And I loaded that up there and I said, build me an interactive interface that does this. And it makes these kind of calculations. And I am not a developer by any means. It makes these kind of calculations and it adjusts time frames. It was my timeline application. And it was about 2-3 prompts into it. And it was like, there it is. I mean, it blew my mind off of a picture of what I wanted. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine. And you understand coding and engineering on the back end. So to take it even that much further when you understand the language is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Just mind-blowing.
And the quality of what it's producing is surprisingly good.
Yeah.
It's not quite production ready, but man, it's so much better than what I expected.
But like you said, like a proof of concept or, here's a prototype that we want to build.
Yep.
It's so easy to do now where you can get feedback from your clients easier to go, yep, this is just a trial, but check this out. Do you like this? What would you change?
Yep.
How would you interact with this? Get that feedback and now go into the full build is just radically less time consuming.
Yeah, we actually got to try it with a client this morning.
Nice.
Where they had wanted to combine a couple of their applications together. And so it wasn't even one of our developers, it was one of our product owners with no development background.
No way.
Spent 8 to 12 hours and got a fully functional app that combined these things together that had all of the backing data associated with it and was able to put it in front of the client. And they were just,
That's amazing.
like this is 80% of the way done. Like, what have we been doing with our lives, and what does the future look like? which are great questions to ask.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that Drew asks a lot when we have guests in, is kind of where you see it going. Because something you said is really important. It's not enterprise level. It might work as a proof of concept. It might work for your own personal use, right? But it's maybe not something you could really sell to a client. So there's still value in people that do what you do and have your knowledge, because you can take it and make it enterprise level, right? Like do those finishing touches, even more than finishing touches. It sounds like you're just kind of like putting a paint.
Right.
It's more than that.
Yep.
Because there's so much more to this than people really understand when it comes to software. You can't just say, as much as I'd like to say that, it's not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
It's just a start.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're working on developing products for clients. You're looking into new AI tools that are coming out. What aside from what was it? Was it Make? No, Bolt.
Bolt.
Yep. Bolt.new.
Yep.
Is there are any other tools that are catching your attention right now, or that you're excited about, or just starting to look into?
I mean, really, we've been trying to optimize our Copilot usage a lot. That's a day in and day out where we're writing code, and how to use that well. And kind of with that is, I can't remember exactly when, but fairly recently, they enabled a bunch of other models that you can use with Copilot now. So starting to experiment with, instead of just ChatGPT, how does Claude Sonnet 3.7 do in kind of our day-to-day development thing? So that's been a big part of kind of the push to just make us all better in that day-to-day development.
You're talking about Microsoft Copilot, right? So it's built into Excel and Word and everything.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about that for a minute, because I was super excited when Microsoft said they were coming out with this Copilot. And this is this is a couple of years ago that they were, and it came out like at first you had to buy 300 licenses or something like that. And then they finally, reduced it down. And I was chomping at the bit. I was so mad when it was like 300. We're a 40-person company. I'm never going to have Copilot. No, come on. And then it came out and it just didn't hit for me. It didn't live up to expectations, I guess. So I actually stopped using it. I barely use Microsoft Copilot for anything. I'm using ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Perplexity and all my other toys. But now that I'm talking to someone who sounds like they're trying to get it going, like, was that your same experience and you're feeling like it's getting better now? Or what are some use cases maybe where you're having success with Microsoft Copilot?
Yeah, so we primarily use it for software development. So as you're writing code, it's helping do completions and generate things for you. But I had a very similar experience with Gemini when it first came out and for like Google Sheets. I was like, oh, this could build my spreadsheets for me. This is awesome. And so I was like, hey, build a spreadsheet to do this. And I was so disappointed. Like there was calculated columns where rather than it making the calculation in there, it just did the calculation on the values and put the values in. I was like, well, that's not at all what I'm looking for, but that's gotten significantly better too, which is cool to see.
Okay. So
but primarily software development is where we've gotten the most out of it.
So kind of like, almost like how people are using Cursor or, something that's more of like sitting alongside your code. Maybe you get stuck or you've got an error that you need to figure out. You say, hey, why am I getting this error kind of a thing? And it can give you that. Got it.
Yeah, I had to do I was working on a project yesterday where I had to do some kind of complex data queries with the framework that I was using. I was like, I know I could do this, but I could also just ask Copilot to do it for me. And it did great. It was exactly what I needed and kind of helped me stay focused on the bigger picture of what I was trying to develop, which was great.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm excited about the value of AI. And we say this a lot on the show. I sound like an official podcaster when I say that, is how it is going to allow you to be more where you want to be.
Yes.
And less of the other bullshit that you don't want to do. Like you just said it, like, I could do that.
Yeah.
But why?
Right.
Now I can let my brain think more about, more creative uses of this tool, or what else could I do with this versus spending time writing things that somebody could do for you. Yeah,
I just had it the other day too. I was helping a friend with a totally different project company that he was working on, and he was going through a certification process and needed an FMEA for the product, which I've done a lot of writing of FMEAs before, and I was like, I could do it. Or I can have, ChatGPT give me a huge head start on it. And obviously I've still got to go through and add things and verify. But man, it just made that barrier to entry to get started on it.
Right.
It just got rid of it and helped me actually get it done rather than avoid it for a long time.
I love those stories. Like to me, those are just wins for AI, and people get stuck on, some of the negative things, but they don't think about every day people are winning with AI. They're getting more time back in their life. And it's not even time to just like sit and do nothing. It's time to do stuff that you like to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So going back to the beginning when we were talking and we had you out at the Meetup Lab, you talked about AI personas.
Yes.
And I do want to touch on that because I think they're super important, especially moving forward with how we're even building software using prompts. Tell me what an AI persona is. What does it do? Like in its rudimentary form, and then where we can apply that.
Yeah, I'll actually start with a maybe more human concept and then go from there. So you imagine when you're working by yourself, you've got a way that you think, you've got a way that you do things, and you've got knowledge and experience, and you sit down and you do whatever that is, which is great. That's how a lot of us operate. But we know from all sorts of human research over the years that there's a lot of things that are done better by teams. And so teams, when they work together, bring different knowledge, different experience, different motivators, different personalities, a lot of things that come together to make a team actually successful. And what we find is that generally more creative solutions are made or better products are made when it's a team of people. And so AI personas are kind of intended to mimic that sort of teamwork functionality. So, there's not just a Drew and a Pete and a Ben. There's somebody else there that has a different perspective and a different way of thinking about things. And so that's kind of the idea of a persona. It's somebody that is more of a specialized team member that is focused on certain things, has certain knowledge, maybe a certain personality, and has capacity to actually do those things.
Yeah. So how do you build them? Where do you build them? How do you build them? And how do you kind of bake that in? Because I remember you showing us, and I know we don't have any visuals here, so it's kind of like you got to talk about it versus show. But how do you build that in, and where does that go?
Yeah. Yep. So that's a great question that nobody's found a great answer to yet. There's a lot of tools out there that are trying to get there. And, even ChatGPT has a whole API made for building these personas and how they interact with each other, but it's not really in front of users yet. Okay. And so a lot of it's still kind of back on us as users to sort of mimic the functionality. But there are tools out there. One of them that I showed off at that event was called ChatDev, which it can do a lot of things, but one of the things that it does is builds a software company for you. And so it has a CEO persona and a CTO persona and a programmer persona and a tester persona and a requirements engineer persona. Yep. And each one of those has different responsibilities. And so you kind of program in their personalities and what they're responsible for. And then that framework gives them a way to interact and talk with each other, which is the piece that's kind of missing a lot today. Is like you can build different chatbots in ChatGPT, but there's no easy way right now to have them work together.
Right.
So what I would love to see is I had a perfect scenario the other day where I was using ChatGPT to help me make a regular expression, which I hate making regular expressions. And for those that don't know what it is, it's like if you're looking at a bunch of text and you want to find patterns, like a phone number, it has to have 3 numbers and a dash and 3 numbers and a dash.
Yeah.
Regular expressions are a way to help build those patterns so that you can find it in text. And the language for writing them is just terrible. It's ugly, it's confusing, and I love them. They're super powerful, but I hate writing them. Right, and so I needed to write one for a project I was working on. And I went into ChatGPT and said, hey, I need a regular expression to do this. And it built it. And I was like, great. And I tried it and it's like, well, it's not working in this scenario. Can you fix that? It went and fixed it and made something more complicated. And it didn't work with this other thing. And then it broke. And it was like, I kept going round in circles. And finally I had to take a step back and be like, this is too complicated. Can you break it out into separate pieces of logic? And it was like, oh, you're 100% right. Why didn't I think of that? and made it much more readable and better for me, which I would love to have in the ChatGPT interface, like what I'm asking it to do. And then somebody sitting over my shoulder as a separate persona that's saying like, should you be doing that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of the challenge is like, it's happy to help do whatever you want, but are you really doing the right thing? And that's where, a good team member on a team, like a senior software engineer in a development team can be like, Andrew, you accomplished the task, but you didn't do it that well.
Yeah.
And could you make it better this way? And that's the type of personas that can make a team a lot more powerful. And I'd love to see that in some of even our chat interfaces today where something can be asking, should you be doing that?
Ooh, Evan, I want you to mark this as a future prediction.
There we go.
Okay, so I love what you just said there, and there's going to be tremendous value in that. And is that we actually hinted on this same topic with a previous guest. We had Kim in, and she was talking about somebody that had applied to her company, and it was a terrible email that they used to apply, and she asked for actually attaching a resume to the email when you ask for a job. So this person just replied back with just the attachment, no words or anything. And you feel for, it's probably some kid just out of college and nobody sat down with them and said, this is how you apply for a job or whatever it is. They didn't have a lot of great guidance, but might be a great kid. Imagine, and this is where my prediction is, you've got these Meta Ray-Ban glasses, right? And there's AI built into them and it can see what you see. If I'm wearing those and I'm getting ready to apply to this job and I'm getting ready to hit send on that email that has hardly any words and it didn't attach my resume. And it's like, hey, Pete, hold on.
Yep.
Before you hit send on that, let's talk about this email. Put yourself in the shoes of the person who's going to be receiving this. Do you think this is really well written? Does this really represent who you are and what you're trying to convey? Here's some suggestions for maybe how you would change that. Oh, and by the way, could you attach your freaking resume? Because they have no idea who you are or what you've done. So if it's that same thing, it's your I don't know, guardian angel or something. It's there, it's observing, it's catching things that you're not catching. And it's just helping you. It's augmenting you. And so anyway, put that in the vault. That's a peak future.
Here we go.
Yep.
They already have technology that I've already read articles about it where they are taking like Meta style glass. I don't know if it's the Meta glasses specifically, but where it can actually look at, oh, that's Ben Jacques from Mutually Human, and actually tell you who you're looking at, because the whole privacy thing came in going, oh shit, where's it pulling all that data from? Well, if he's on Facebook or on LinkedIn and it can pull it, that's public information, and it literally pulls it up. But then to tailor it, I think the next step after that is, I'm going to go meet with you. And it pulls it up and it says, just came back from vacation because we saw it on Facebook, or gives me that data that I'm going to look up on Facebook or LinkedIn anyway, because I'm going to stalk you before I meet with you anyway.
Right, obviously.
Right.
But to have that instantly on the fly, and then couple that with the emotional intelligence and some of that, it can pick up from him. It's recording that and saying, oh, he's off put by what you're talking about when you're talking about the pricing, or he's not into this deal. And start tailing your conversation where you're getting this instantaneous feedback while you're talking or having that conversation.
Imagine
would be incredible.
It also has access to their personality profile. So if they do like a strengths finder or there's plenty of popular ones out there. I want to say DICE. It's a disc. Thank you.
Yep.
So it has that, and it's prompting based off of your personality, how you better receive information. And maybe it's not even in a sales capacity where I'm trying to convince you to do something, but maybe we work together, and it just helps us work better together, because it's like, well, you're going to say what you're going to say, but he's going to hear it. He's not going to hear what you're saying. But if you say it like this, it's going to make sense, or it's going to get that your thought across. And I mean, geez, now I'm thinking, need that with my wife.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
do. I got you. My prediction, Drew's prediction here.
But helping with social interactions, so many of us struggle with that, and it just, you don't know what to say, or you feel like you're saying it, it's just not getting across. And it's like, to be that companion. So, and I'm totally just went off on a wild tangent off a brilliant idea, but I see that being so beneficial.
But it is like an AI persona on steroids at that point, because then you can program it with not only just someone looking over your shoulder, but you can program it as a marketer. How would you say this? As a salesperson, as a consumer, as a, whatever. And you're getting all this feedback instantaneously. Yeah.
One of the fascinating things about that chat dev that I was talking about, they have sort of a companion to that is made to mimic social interactions. So it's essentially social simulation. So make a bunch of AI personas, drop them into an environment, and let them interact with each other. And there's been a lot of fascinating research that comes out of that helps us mimic social situations more than we've ever been able to before.
Simulated.
Yeah. So simulated realities to help understand, like let's say you're designing a block and you want, apartments here and a restaurant here.
Yeah.
You could actually put that there, drop people into it, and see how they actually interact in that environment. It's not perfect yet, but the other piece I want to mention with that is, one of the most fascinating things that I've seen recently in that space is most of the research in this AI persona space has been about collaboration and teams, and like, how do you get people to work together? I recently saw something that a paper that came out that talked about using it specifically for competition. So one of the things that makes a lot of teams better is having competition, and makes people better is having competition. And so one of the simulations that they ran was having a bunch of customers in an environment and a couple of different restaurants. And so they basically instructed the restaurant owner personas to try to optimize their business and get more customers. So they were able to come up with all these creative ways to market and to sell to their customers to get those AI
perfect concept for like a restaurant there.
Yeah, exactly.
That
So
is
it's those types of like competitive situations that we can now mimic. Again, not perfectly, but it is coming a long way.
But if you can get 85, well, our rule is always if you can get 85% of the way there,
Yep.
you got something going.
Well, I think maybe the last 15% then is what Craig Tucker and Vern are doing, because a previous guest we had on here talking about what he's built is really dialed into the emotional part of things, and people buy on emotion, right?
Yeah.
So you're competing, so the language model can come up with a strategy, but then you put emotion on top of that, and now you've got a really more robust model, right? And how people interact is based on emotion. So, man, that was awesome. That's awesome.
I think it's exciting now.
I can't stop thinking about that.
Yeah, and I haven't seen a great tool that lets you just sort of do that as a normal user yet, and that's where I think some of those things are going to come, kind of like the ChatGPT interface where everybody can use it. Right now, it takes a lot of special skill to be able to build those type of social simulations. But
McDonald's, you'd think would be the first client in line,
right?
Because they're on a strip with 50 other restaurants, and if they can run that competition simulation, they can drive. Holy cow! Yeah,
it makes you think. There's a lot of social situations we can mimic, and
ton of applications at that point.
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface.
Seriously. So what are it's going to be hard to switch gears from that, but I also don't want to talk
your
about
brain's
that.
just, I can see it going.
But I am really also enthralled by this whole persona thing. And if you can maybe help out some of our listeners in ways that they can use personas with just regular, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini, because you can do it with all the language models, whatever you're using. But there are ways to get better responses out of these language models by asking it to be something. Do you have some examples of that you could share with us that can maybe help some folks out that don't really use it that way right now?
Yeah. One of the things that was really helpful for me was a concept called the 6 thinking hats, which are like these different colored hats that help you think about how you solve problems. And each of us has a natural tendency or a natural bent toward one of the types of hats or some mix of them, but they tend to be things like, the red hat is very intuition based. So whatever your gut tells you, that's what you're going to do. Or there's a lot of black hat thinkers that are like, but how could this go wrong? And this can go wrong this way. And this can, like, I'm sure some of the people listening to this podcast can be like, social simulation. No, this could happen. This could happen. Where I think you guys are naturally more like, whoa, how could we use that?
Yeah.
And so, how you think about things, if you get a chance to look it up, the six thinking hats are just different ways that people think about problems. And I've actually found it very useful in my prompting to know, like, I tend to kind of surprisingly be an intuition leaner. So whatever my gut tells me is what I do, even though my background is like very analytical.
Sure.
But what I find is like where I tend to lack sometimes in creativity, that's where I can use in my prompt to be like, hey, you're very creative in your problem solving and like to think about lots of different ways to approach this. So start by giving me a bunch of different possible ways, and then we'll go from there. So that's one way to use sort of a green hat, creative thinker to use in my prompt to get me to think outside of how I would ask to solve the problem. Because my natural tendency is to be like, I think I need to solve it this way, so tell me how to solve it that way. And, Chatty G will be like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'll solve it that way. And sometimes that's not what I need. Or sometimes I'll ask it to be that black hat thinker and tell me, like, what are the edge cases I'm missing with this where things can go very wrong? And it will, even though it wouldn't have done that on its own, if I tell it to think that way, then it approaches it in a different mentality. And that has been hugely helpful in a lot of ways. But right now I have to do that. I have to be the one forcing it to act that way. And that's where I think in the future, we're going to have it be a little bit more able to do that on its own.
A little bit more aware almost.
Yes. Yep.
So you're one shot prompting it and saying, be a black hat thinker. And it just, because it knows the entirety of the internet, it kind of knows what black hat thinking is, and it does that.
Yeah.
Could you use custom instructions and say, hey, when I call up this custom GPT. I want you to simulate the 6 hats, of thinking when I talk with you, and kind of give me representation from. Could you do that?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found it to be more useful to have an agent per hat rather than have it do it all together, because otherwise it just ends up with so much text that
that makes sense.
This is supposed to save me time, but now I have to spend the next hour reading this novel you generated.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can use AI to summarize.
When
summarize yourself.
Exactly. When ChatGPT first gave those custom instructions, the first thing I did was I want your responses whenever possible to be short in bullet points, and I don't want long text. And that was
100%.
Very helpful right out of the gate, because that's just how I operate. I'm the Cliff Notes are enough for me to get what I need from you.
That's exactly it. That sounds like a sales guy.
Yeah.
give me the boiled down version.
Yep.
That would also fit in what you were saying earlier about the different personas being able to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So I actually just had this conversation with somebody over coffee the other morning. If you had these different personas, you could ask them to go away and talk amongst yourselves.
Exactly.
And then come back to me with a summary of, and I think what I called it was the ESPN highlights of that conversation. Mm-hmm. That would be a cool way to move forward with that, is to I know you guys are going to go say a bunch of shit that I don't care about.
Yep.
But eventually you'll get to something meaningful, then bring that back to me. That'd be a cool way to work with that.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the chat dev tool kind of does. You give it your prompt and they go and talk of it, so that the CEO will be this is what our customer wants. And then the CTO reviews it and be this would be a good use case for a web application with this. And then he gives that off to the software developers that start writing it. Then the software developers pass it over to the test engineers that test what they wrote to see if it actually works how it was supposed to. And then, so they do all this work and orchestrate all of that on their own, and then come back to you with a supposedly working solution.
Okay. So, I get better understanding.
Yeah. How do you keep it from going off the rails though? To where it's going, it comes back and says, here it is. And you're going, what the hell is this?
And that's where one of the personas is designed specifically for that. So there's certain checkpoints within that process where, maybe it's the CEO or a product owner or a client advocate, whatever you want it to be, can be hey, Drew asked for this and you're doing this now. That's way off base. And so you can actually program in with a specific persona to be able to have those checks and balances there.
The pessimist persona.
Exactly.
The black hat.
This is not going to work.
And one of the things that tool provides is a way to add a human in the loop. So at certain checkpoints, it can come in and say, hey, this is where we're at. Is this what you want? And so it kind of gives you a chance to inject your personality, your persona.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the piece where I think we're going to see more and more of that, where, like you said, they'll kind of go off, do their thing, and then come back with, when I actually need you, I'll ask for more information.
So that chat dev then is specifically for software development. You couldn't repurpose that and say, hey, we've got an issue. We're trying to open a plant in Mexico or whatever. It's designed for development work.
So out of the box it is, but it is all programmable. Basically just with text. You set up your personas, and then you set up how you want them, kind of the flow of how you want them to operate. So you could have a plant manager and a regulations expert and whatever you need for that decision, and then tell them hey, go, you talk to this person, come up with something, then you talk to this, then do 6 loops of ideas. And then out of that, pick the best one, and then come back to me with it.
I think you just gave me my weekend plans.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about. Good thing I didn't say, "Hey, Mark, this is one of Pete's future predictions," because it's already exists right now. But I've been thinking a lot about it, how powerful. And we don't talk about this a lot on here, but how powerful AI is as a thought partner.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, it's great for creating content and images of Drew with buff, forearms and just got out of the gym. But there's so much value in, because to your point, we only think a certain way, and we always think we're right. But if we had other people that we know are impartial to us, and they don't have their own agenda, and they're just going to give you blunt feedback, that's powerful, really powerful.
Yeah, which is why teamwork works.
Yeah.
You need those. And that's kind of the idea behind this collective intelligence and personas, is that you get that like we get in the human world with teamwork.
Yeah.
I just see that escalating too with now generative AI. I mean, just the leaps and bounds that's come already. And I just see that just exponentially just growing. I mean, I know that's not even a prediction. That's just happening.
Yeah.
I mean, that is clearly happening.
Yep.
But to be able to do that and have that feedback system in there and to really start bulletproofing more and more ideas, and then couple that with the text to video stuff like I was showing you earlier. I mean, great. I have a new product that I want to come up with. Run it through all your personas to really bulletproof your, not just your messaging, but the product itself, and then make a advertisement based off of that. I mean, within a day, you've got it all set up.
Yeah. Now you're thinking about personas exactly right. Like, where do I need the right person to come in and correct this? And how would you tell them, like, if you were to hire somebody for that role, that can actually lead to a really good prompt of how you want them to behave. Or you could, probably drop a resume in for a product risk analysis or analyst or something.
Yeah.
That generates a persona for you that you now can leverage for those types of ideas.
Wow, that really is going to take over some jobs now.
Yeah.
Because the better that gets, the more human that becomes. Human with, I would even say, less errors, maybe. I mean, that's going to start replacing some stuff.
It is.
Just stew on that for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you hinted on something that I think about a lot too. And, you almost said, are you going to hire this person? And that's where people are so afraid of AI replacing jobs, kind of going back to what you said too. But I think that's where we're still such a long ways out.
Yeah.
And my reasoning for that is that AI is it's the smartest, it could be the smartest tool that you will ever use, and it just keeps getting smarter. And so I was like, oh, that's going to take my job. Okay. But AI doesn't know how to do my job. It doesn't know, I hardly know what I do in a day. So how can you hire AI to replace me and tell it to do Pete's job when Pete doesn't even really know what, I don't have a formulaic, my day isn't the same every day. It changes due to different things. The only way that you're going to get AI to replace someone truly is if you can explicitly detail what it is that they have to do. Mm-hmm. And what does that person need to do when they run into certain situations. And you have to, I think you have to onboard it like a human and train it like a human, probably better than you're training your humans, because we all suck at training people when they join companies. Mm-hmm. But if you really sit down and think, okay, if I had to teach a child how to do this, a child with a child prodigy, but that child prodigy still needs to know how to do the job, and then it will do it better than I do. We're so far away from that, because every company would have to sit down and like come up with great job descriptions for everything that person does, how to do the job, instead of just like, hey, Jimmy, you did that wrong. And then Jimmy will learn, but you can also train the AI the same. I'm going off on this weird tangent right now. I think about this so much that I'm just like in my own head right now. Mm-hmm. But it's really comes down to training, and that's where companies are going to have to get really good at, if they do want to augment their people with AI, is really learning what their people actually do in a given day. And
But I would challenge that and say, is it, with a question, I'm challenging it because I don't have the answer. So I don't even know why I'm bringing this up, but that was the stupidest way to intro this.
I don't know what I'm going to ask, and I don't know what I'm going to say.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to say it. I would challenge it and say, is it the tool that isn't up to that spec yet to replace somebody, or is it the implementation of, because you kept saying, well, because you got to train it and you have to, they don't know my whole day because you'd have to go through every single day. What if you could? What if you had that kind of time to feed that into the system? I think the tool, because we've said this before, the tool knows how, the tool can get to the answer. Mm-hmm. It's always the ask. We always run into people. Pete and I constantly run into people. I'm sure you do too. Oh yeah, I used ChatGPT and I asked it a question and it didn't work.
Yep.
Oh, great. How shitty was your question that you asked?
Right.
You know, it's about the
You're the problem.
yeah, it's like, I'm sure the tool can do it. And so knowing that, I think the tool can do it. It's just how do we implement all that information to train it up so it can then take over? And that's a big ask.
I think your
that's
question,
the biggest ask.
Your question more succinctly said what I was trying to say than what I said. Because that is really it.
I did it better. Is that what
You
you're saying?
did it better.
We got that on record.
Strike that, Evan.
I'd like to mark that as Drew's prediction.
You have to take the time. If you want to implement AI into what you're doing, aside from writing emails and content for marketing or, whatever it is,
Right.
you have to really sit down and plan it out what it's going to do. Whether it's, even if it's just answering the phone for you, you have to tell it how you want it to engage with the people that are calling. We had another guest on here where they're using it for property management. Mm-hmm. And he said that there are automations that are running in the background when it gets a certain question, it will elevate something to an emergency and page something if it senses that it's something that's super urgent. And if it's not, it's an email that goes to that company that can wait until tomorrow morning if it comes in after hours. They had to program that. They didn't just say, hey, Charlie, answer the phone as a property manager and good luck. Like, you can't just do that and walk away.
Right.
So I think that's what you're saying is what I said, then you said better, was you have to train it like a human, and then it will be able to do human-like things for you.
Which in your use case, they programmed it to do essentially one thing. Well, I mean, that's one thing that replaces what a human can do for that one component. But if you look at your day, your week, your 6 months, your year, it's a series of individual components that you could break it down to. So again, that's an enormous amount of time and task to build that. But if you could train it on each individual one with all those different variables, I think the tool can do that.
I think so too. And that's how you would train a human to do it.
Right.
So that, I don't know, I'm just putting that out there. If whoever's going to work on this stuff, think about it like you're training a human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what we're finding even with some of the persona ideas, like there can be a persona that figures out which the right persona is to do that task.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like a lot of these large language models, we're treating them like God agents, like you can do everything and you'll figure it out. And what it's actually a lot more efficient many times is, have a model that's good at figuring out what kind of question you're trying to ask and then route that to the right agent to take care of it.
Are you familiar with N8N? You know what that is?
No.
Or Make? There's another one that John was talking about when he was in here earlier. So it's a low code, no code agentic framework.
Okay.
And it's exactly what you just described. So you have your input, whatever that input is. It's an email, it's voice or whatever. And there's a master agent. And then it's almost like a wheel with a spoke, hub and spokes going out to other agents that are programmed to do specific things. And the master agent decides which one to invoke.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's that exact same thing. So that's a lot of fun to think about too. Kind of goes along what we were just talking about is John built Charlie to answer the phone and handle service requests, but then you could just add one more spoke to that where it's calling on collecting payment was another thing that he talked about. And those are just, everything's just going to be another spoke that goes off of this master agent.
Yeah.
Gum loop, GUM loop. Gum loop is another one. It's an AI
heard of that
automation. I had it saved because I've used it on just some small stuff. I've used that and I've used Make before.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned that training piece, and I think there's a really good example of that's kind of happened is the Copilot within like Visual Studio Code when you're writing code has been helping us for a couple of years now. And it's just been augmenting the human task. So it's not, going off and doing it on its own, it's helping, but that has generated a lot of training data that I think has helped these things like Bolt.new and Lovable now exist, where rather than just augmenting what that developer was doing, now it's actually doing a lot more of that task. And that's what we're actually starting to see more success with even some of our clients, because selling AI to people is so hard. Like, it does stuff. What stuff?
Exactly.
What do you want it to do?
Exactly.
And so what we've had a lot of success with recently is finding those places where you can augment those human jobs rather than try to replace them, and do the tedious parts of it and the hard parts of it. And that as you're doing that, it's helping create better tooling and better data to know what to do with it from there. And we're probably going to see more of that, but in the long term, it's scary, right? It's like, oh, I'm helping train this tool to get rid of me. But at the same time, there's a lot of things where, like, as a developer, I'm not afraid of that. I'm like, hey, you can develop these or build this whole scaffolding for this application that I don't have to do anymore. I didn't like doing it anyway.
Right.
There's lots of other things I love. And so I think just continuing to hone in on that human augmentation with a purpose-built interface for it. Because right now a text box is still terrible for most tasks that humans do. So having that purpose-built user interface that somebody, as they're doing their job, is getting help right alongside without having to go context switch out to, browser, I do something and I come back and what was I working on? Having those types of augmented tools is growing rapidly, and I think we're going to see a lot more of those purpose-built UIs here soon, which is exciting.
Because you'll have more time to focus on that, because you're not building the scaffolding for it. And you just think about the positive of how much better is software going to be when these developers aren't, fixing this bug that's just crushing their soul. There's this cool thing that they want to do and they just can't get over that hump or whatever that bug is, or even having to support it after the fact. What if the AI can fix the things that break as it's going on, and you can just focus on the actual value that the software is providing and not having to spend all this time fixing things? Or, I just think there's so much more time could be spent on how does this create value. And so I think that's a definite plus.
Yeah. And I think along with that, maybe a little bit different of a rabbit trail, but I think adaptive UIs are coming before long too. We're going to see a lot more of that where, when you open a mobile app, it doesn't look the same as Drew's mobile app because you use it differently. And
we're just talking about that. We're just talking about that earlier.
And it's scary as a software developer when I hear that, but I'm like, oh, but now there's going to be even more bugs and things aren't going to format right. And I'm like, but if the tooling gets better where it can adapt it and also detect that, hey, when I changed this format, it made it so I couldn't see this button anymore. Let me just fix that right away. Those types of things I think are going to be really interesting. Where you might look at an app and be like, I don't even know what app that is because it's so adapted to you that the branding might still be the same, but it could be totally different than how it started.
What better way to have it then, right? Because we're all different. And like Drew uses ChatGPT voice mode way more than I do. He'll just do it as he's driving down the road.
Way more than I should.
And I think about it when I'm driving, but I'm like, I don't have anything to say. So I just keep driving. I listen to my podcast. But, he's constantly talking to it. So yeah, his UI should be much different than mine because I'm constantly just texting in it.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's wrap this up.
These go by way too fast.
They go way too quick. Ben, appreciate you having you on our podcast, and always love having you out at the meetup. Tell everybody where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way. Not on any other social media platform. So find me there, or Ben Jacques at Mutually Human if you're a real email person. So.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really
if you like what you heard today, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.